short of delivering on the promises made in Paris. As I said at the start of this conference, we will succeed or fail as one. We do want to conclude this COP this afternoon. Friends, the world is watching us. They're willing us to reach an agreement here for the sake of our planet and for present and future generations.
Richard Ratcliffe, the husband of a British Iranian woman detained in Iran, has ended his hunger strike after 21 days. Mr. Ratcliffe has been camping outside the Foreign Office in central London, striking over Nazanin Zaghari Ratcliffe's detention in Iran since 2016. He's trying to put pressure on the British government to help free his wife. He's criticised Prime Minister Boris Johnson, saying he hasn't dealt adequately with the case.
Feels like, my job is to keep going for Gabriella. We probably hoped we'd get a breakthrough doing this. We haven't yet. I didn't want to go out in an ambulance. I wanted to walk out with my head held high.
Scottish Tory leader Douglas Ross has been accused of being knee-deep in sleaze after failing to declare thousands of pounds in outside earnings. Mr Ross was forced to refer himself to the Standards Commissioner after he received more than £28,000 from 2 additional jobs. As well as being an MP, the politician is also an MSP and works as a football referee. The SNP said he was failing the Scottish people and needs to focus on one job. A man has been arrested in connection with a double stabbing in West London last night, which left one man dead and a pensioner critically injured. A man believed to be in his 20s died at the scene in Albany Parade in Brentford, while the woman in her 80s remains in hospital. A man in his 30s has been arrested on suspicion of murder and attempted murder. A memorial service is being held in France for the November 2015 terrorist attack that killed 130 people. French Prime Minister Jean Castex has laid wreaths of flowers in tribute to those who died. People were killed at the Stade de France restaurants in Paris and the Bataclan concert theatre 6 years ago. Celebrities have shared their support for Britney Spears as her conservatorship was terminated after nearly 14 years. Heiress Paris Hilton told her near 17 million Twitter followers that the ruling was so long overdue. Singer Cher also shared her support. The pop superstar had been fighting to end the complex legal agreement that she was placed under in 2008 amid substance abuse and mental health issues. The 39-year-old has thanked her fans after regaining full legal control of her personal life and career. And London has kicked off its Christmas festivities with the world's largest light switch-on. More than 1 million LED lights have been turned on simultaneously across 20 West End streets. The displays can be seen across the capital's most well-known areas, including Mayfair, Piccadilly Circus and Leicester Square. Well, that's your news update. I'll be back in half an hour with the latest headlines. Now let's return to Nana Akua.
Now, I know we're all a bit sick of this whole COVID malarkey. It's a bit like Meghan Markle. It simply won't go away. Only today, I have to admit, cheating with my mask. I had it on, just covering my nose in a cab whilst I was talking to my friend on the phone. People have been going on about having their freedoms taken away as they believe they're being forced to have the vaccination to live a normal life. For example, care home staff have passed the second jab deadline, and now the remaining front-facing NHS staff will have to be jabbed by April next year. There's even a murmuring of the possibility of yet another dreaded lockdown over Christmas. The suggestion is always that the vulnerable, many of whom religiously locked themselves away for the best part of a year, should be the ones who once again had their freedoms curtailed, whilst the healthy go about their business. Well, here's a thought. Let's flip it on its head. How about, if there is another lockdown, God help us, Those who have been vaccinated or have the relevant COVID antibodies should be allowed to go about their business, and the unvaccinated and those without antibodies be the ones who are locked down. Let's face it, there's fewer of them. Sadly, I can't claim the credit for this brainwave. It's an idea that Austria's Chancellor Alexander Schallenberg is considering. The introduction of a strict new regional lockdown to cope with rising COVID infections. The restrictions would only apply to those classed as unvaccinated. Currently, cases are rising at the rate 3 times higher than that of Germany next door. And the Chancellor, who holds the purse strings, is clearly having a flashback to previous lockdowns and doesn't fancy the toll it took on the public finances. Speaking during a visit to the western city of Bregenz on Thursday, he said a new stay-at-home order was now probably unavoidable for the unvaccinated as they faced an uncomfortable Christmas. He went on to say, "I don't see why 2/3 should lose their freedom because 1/3 is dithering. For me, it's clear that there should be no lockdown for the vaccinated out of solidarity for the unvaccinated." Now, their vaccination rate actually stands at around about 65%, which he called shamefully low. The reason for this low rate? Well, an anti-vax sentiment that sees taking the vaccine a matter of personal choice rather than one of civic duty intended to protect both individuals and society as a whole. He insisted, "We can break this wave together-ish." So if there is another lockdown in this country, which given our current COVID infection rate and the fact that we're heading into the flu season isn't inconceivable, should only those who are classed as unvaccinated face a lockdown? Is getting vaccinated a matter of personal choice or a civic duty? What do you think? Right, so before we get stuck into the debate, here's what else is coming up today. For my difficult conversation, we're discussing all things adoption, and we'll be speaking to superstar singer Sunita, who will be joining us. She's not only a sensation on the stage, but an extremely loving mother of 2. She adopted them when they were just 20 months. I'll be speaking to her about a decision to adopt and being a mum to 2 fabulous children. The Great British Debate this hour: should UK troops protect the borders of other countries? British Royal Engineers have been deployed to Poland's border with Belarus as tensions escalate over a migrant crisis there. But with a crisis on our own doorstep, with record numbers of migrants crossing the Channel this week, should we be helping out other countries? That's coming up. But tell me what you think on everything we're discussing by emailing gbviews@gbnews.uk, or why not tweet me @gbnews. Right, let's get started. Welcome again to my panel, comedian Leo Kearse, and also Conservative, smile a bit, crikey, you're supposed to be a comedian, and Conservative commentator Calvin Robinson. Right, first I want to discuss the story I was talking about. There you go, that's better, Leo, that's nicer. So what do you think then? I'm going to start with you, Leo, see what you have to say about what we've been discussing.
About unvaccinated people. Funnily enough, I was in Austria a couple of weeks ago doing some shows, and they were really strict on the COVID stuff. They wanted to see my COVID passport. Even sitting outside a cafe, having a coffee, the waiter wanted to see my COVID passport, which actually ended up with him touching my phone screen, which could have given me COVID. So, you know, these restrictions don't always follow, you know, a logical path. But yeah, I mean, I've seen some comments, like Esther Ranson was on GB News saying that, like, unvaccinated people should be denied, way further than the Austrian thing. Unvaccinated people should be, as well as locking down, they should be denied hospital care for anything. If you have a heart attack, or if you fall down the stairs.
Say that.
She said that.
She could not have. We'll have to find that clip. She said those things. I don't believe.
And it's ridiculous. I mean, vaccination, because the thing about vaccination is if you're vaccinated, you can still carry the virus and pass it on to people. So, you know, although you're
less likely to catch the disease in the first place, though, so that does make you slightly less of a risk.
It makes you less of a risk, but not a complete. What happened to personal responsibility and managing your own risk level? What about, you know, where's it going to stop?
What about civic duty, though? And a collective responsibility?
Well, what about the civic duty of people who go hang gliding, to not go hang gliding in case they fall out of the sky and land on somebody's barbecue?
That's fair enough, but you can't catch hang gliding. Right, what
But
about
somebody can
you?
fall on you.
But you can't catch it, though, can you? Someone's got 2 hang gliders, not going to
What
catch
has happened to us as a people that we're talking about medical apartheid as if it's a normal thing? We're talking about locking down a mass number of our population because they
No,
don't...
not mass, actually. It'll be the minority now because most people are vaccinated.
No, but I didn't say majority, I said mass. A lot of people, we're talking about hundreds of thousands of people, we're talking about locking them down because they haven't done what you want them to do. I think it's horrendous.
Well, it's not really. I mean, so would
so let's break it down.
Would you have
so
it?
why is
hold
it
on.
just-
Would
why
you
is it
have it
just
the other
civic
way
duty?
then? Would you have it the other way? So if we have another lockdown, there's a lot of talk, and I'm sure pretty much that you've said it, that the vulnerable people should be lock themselves
I
away for
certainly
a short
haven't. No,
period of
this
time.
is how far the Overton window has shifted. You talk about who do we lock down? Who shall we lock? No, let's not
No,
lock
if
people
there
down.
is,
No,
if there is,
let's
this is-
not lock people
let's
down.
put the scenario to
That
you.
chap we just saw said, no, why should these people lose their freedoms? Those people should lose their freedoms instead. No, nobody should lose their freedoms.
But let's put
the
it to
government
you.
has no right to take
So
our
let's
freedoms
put
away.
it to you. Let's put it to you that because there has been talk of Plan C, which could involve a lockdown, and if it does, somebody's going to have to be locked down. Let me put it to you that instead of locking those down, if you're going to lock people down, instead of locking the people who are vulnerable, which is usually how it's positioned, how about locking down
the logic
those
doesn't
who are
follow.
unvaccinated?
The logic does not follow. The viral load and the transmission rates are pretty much the same whether you're vaccinated or unvaccinated. Therefore, it doesn't make a difference. Locking people down doesn't matter because the virus will still spread among people.
Yeah.
And you keep saying it's a civic duty and you're less likely to catch the virus if you've been vaccinated. Fair enough. But that affects your personal risk, not my risk.
No, it does
Exactly.
actually.
So
No,
we should-
that's not true.
We
It does
shouldn't lock
affect.
people down. It should be left to people's own choice.
Well, did you see
So
what
if
happened when
are
people were
vulnerable,
left-
If people are worried about it, then they've got the choice to avoid situations where they could catch the virus.
Let's look at evidence.
Sorry, did
So
you see
looking
what
countries.
happened? Did you see what happened to people though when it was you don't have to wear a mask? Literally, people just went, oh great.
Yes,
So
yes, let's look
leaving
at
it,
that. Let's
leaving
look at
it to
that.
personal choice.
So let's look at
doesn't
Ireland,
always leave it
Germany,
right.
Netherlands,
good.
Australia. These countries have mask mandates. These countries have vaccine passports, and their rates are going up and up.
Right.
So these methods of restriction do not work.
Well,
so
no,
why are we
but
looking at
it's
these
a
countries
layered-
and saying it's not working there? Let's try it over here.
No, but it's a layered
it's actually
effect.
lunacy.
It's a layered effect, though, isn't it? Because the masks should help a little bit, and then you've got the social distancing
Well, look,
that
no,
helps.
because
Sorry,
compare
let me
it to what
finish.
happened
Let me
here.
finish.
Go
That
on.
should help a little bit more.
No, it
and then,
doesn't.
of course, you've got the vaccination. Then on top of that,
You're
the
spreading
idea is it's a
misinformation.
laying.
You're spreading
No,
misinformation.
the idea is that it's a laying effect. And then let
But
me
it's
finish.
not.
And with regard to your comment about transmission, yes, the viral load is the same, but research only at the end of October, I think it's October 21st, showed that whilst the transmission, the actual viral load is equally as high, the actual reduction in that viral load is faster. So therefore, you're less infectious for a lesser period of time if you've been vaccinated. That's what they found.
Look, if we're comparing these positions of different countries and we're looking at what happened here over autumn and into the summer through the summer to the autumn, we had freedoms, we had no restrictions, and our rates were falling. In other countries, they had higher restrictions, mask mandates, vaccine passports. The countries I've just named, their transmission rates were going up. So if we're looking at data and we're looking at evidence and saying what works, what doesn't work, we should clearly be saying the more freer the people, the more freer we are from the virus.
But if we put it specifically,
Historically, people have been really good at managing their own
If we put it
risk.
specifically, right, that we are addressing this actual scenario where you have unvaccinated and vaccinated and there is a lockdown, then what would you do in that instance? If somebody had to be locked down, what would
There
you say?
shouldn't be
No, but
a lockdown.
I know,
It's a
but
false
I'm
premise.
putting.
You
But
can't say
my
if there
monologue,
is-
my
it's a false
monologue
premise.
is with regard to an idea that is in Austria. So I'm asking your thoughts on that specific. I hear your.
Okay, so I'll talk about Austria. Let's talk about specifically
okay,
Austria.
okay.
So in Austria, you can't go to work, you can't go to... No, so you can only go to work, you can only food shop, and you can only stretch your legs if you are unvaccinated. But between 60 to 70% of people in that country are already vaccinated. And the health experts say that they need 75% for everyone to be okay. So they're at the level anyway. So there's a 5% margin there. So what is the purpose of the lockdown? What's the reasoning behind it? Why would you want it?
Well, no, this is. I mean, look. I'm simply putting the case to you that is what's happening in one country in Europe, and
But
I'm
why?
asking you.
Why would we have it?
Yeah, but I'm asking you. If you had those options, vaccinated or unvaccinated, what would your thoughts be? If there had to be a lockdown and somebody had to be locked down?
That's like.
But can you?
That's like saying,
No, but
if I've got to kill some people,
Yeah.
No, but
which group of people should I
No,
kill?
but it's
Like,
not about
yeah,
killing. Where's the killing?
It's
Sorry.
that
Where's the killing? Where's
it's
the
that
killing?
philosophical question, and it's hypothetical. There shouldn't be a lockdown. There shouldn't be a lockdown. I mean, if there is a lockdown, it should be applied evenly because we shouldn't discriminate against people based on
what would you
we
say?
shouldn't coerce people. It makes me less likely to have the vaccine. Like, I'm pro-vaccine. Like, I'm not against. I've had vaccines for lots of things. I've had my tetanus boosters, whatever else we got jabbed with at school, polio, and it's great. I haven't had polio, and I'll probably get the COVID vaccine when my passport runs out. Because at the moment because I've been infected with COVID already, so I've got the infection passport, which lasts for another 5 months, and then I'll get the vaccine then, because I still want to travel and stuff. But this coercion doesn't encourage me to get the vaccine. It makes me question the motives of the people trying to force me to have the vaccine.
Yeah, but so what if that, the point is that the reason they're doing it is to try and reduce the transmission, trying to bring the thing down into control. It's not trying to hurt your feelings or anything like that.
No.
As he said it's being positioned by those as an argument about freedom rather than one of a civic duty.
Yeah.
So the question posed to you is, if in that scenario, no one seems to want to answer, if given that scenario.
But it sets a very dangerous precedent
but they are doing that.
bodily
They're
autonomy,
genuinely doing that.
for bodily autonomy and how we function as a society and how we treat people. There should not be medical apartheid.
But why do you see it as a medical apartheid?
And also, this isn't. I'd understand if bodies were piling up in the street. We're talking. There's so few people dying from COVID.
Well, now.
So look at what's happening now.
If you think, look at so many cases.
AstraZeneca have announced that this week they're going to start charging for the vaccine, because they said they would never charge for the vaccine, or rather, they would never make a profit from the vaccine while it was a pandemic. So they are saying it's quite clearly no longer a pandemic, no longer a global pandemic. We're entering endemic stages. Therefore, this virus is not as serious as it was. So AstraZeneca are saying, we're going to start making profit from it in countries that are developed. And quite right too. Well done for them for being, moral about the situation. So as we're coming out of a pandemic, why are we looking to take freedoms away again?
Well,
none of it makes sense.
Well, in a sense, though, in a sense, it's not really freedoms being taken away for those who are vaccinated, though, is it? No, but it's not, is it?
It's like saying people are sent to prison. It's not taking your freedom away because you're not in prison. Well, of course, that doesn't make any sense. The logic is
but not everybody can have freedom in this scenario in Austria.
Yeah,
so
everybody could have.
So what they're saying, that they don't see why the unvaccinated, the vaccinated should go out in solidarity for the unvaccinated.
It's very dangerous.
That's what they're saying.
It's not even a precedent. Let's look at the last time we took freedoms away from people in Austria.
It's not, but it's not. It's not about taking freedoms away.
Absolutely is. It's about who you want to lock down. That's
the argument
taking people's freedom.
in their eyes is like it's more of a civic duty. Do you see
whether it's a civic duty or not? You're taking people's freedom away if they don't follow that duty.
But the question is, do you see it as a civic duty?
What, to get a vaccine? No, because it's my personal risk that I'm managing, not yours. It doesn't make sense to see it as a civic duty.
Yeah, the vaccine protects the person.
No, but it doesn't just protect the person.
It doesn't protect the person,
no, it doesn't just protect the person.
Fair point, Leo, fair point.
You've just taken out the word just, which is quite relevant to that. The vaccine doesn't just protect the person who's vaccinated in a sense, because it has a knock-on effect.
It does have some effect on transmission rates.
Yeah,
no, I'll concede that.
That's good.
We can say that about any communicable disease. You can say that about the flu vaccine. If I don't get the flu,
well, that's one of the points you were making. So my point is,
flu kills. Right now, COVID deaths are certainly comparable to flu deaths.
I had a cold last week. I didn't drink Lemsip. Was I disobeying my civic duty? I think it's nonsense. Where do we draw the line?
No, so the question here then is, if, and I keep trying to pose this question to you, neither of you will actually even look at it properly, in terms of Austria, so let's put ourselves in the minds of Austria, where there is a situation where, and they're not going to, you might say, I'm taking away my freedoms with that, but as you said yourself, when you went there, you had to abide by their rules. Full stop. There was none of you're taking away my freedoms argument that you're using now. So if in that scenario, right? So you were in that scenario yourself. Place yourself in there and ask yourself, and if you could give me an answer, if you had to decide who should be locked down, because that's the scenario they're in, what would you say?
I would lock down the vaccinated people to teach them a lesson about medical apartheid. And that's what you get if you think medical apartheid. I'd lock down anybody who thinks medical apartheid is a good idea.
What do you think? Well, who would you lock down?
I wouldn't go to Austria. I used to travel 5 times a year at least. I haven't travelled in the past 18 months because of this. I would carefully choose where I go in the future. I would not go to a country that thinks a medical apartheid is an appropriate way of managing.
What about Africa then?
What is a virus that is survivable by the vast majority.
So what about Africa then? Because you have to have a vaccine for certain things.
I haven't been to Africa and I have no plans to go to Africa at the moment.
So, but if you,
I would not sit there and choose.
So Africa is on your list.
Taken away. I think
so is Africa
it's a false premise, and I won't play it.
So are all countries, all countries that require any sort of vaccine off your list for travel?
No, not at all. No.
Well, isn't that a medical apartheid? I'm confused.
No,
You
because
said-
we're not saying... So I went to Sri Lanka and I had to have a jab to go to Sri Lanka. If I didn't have that jab, they wouldn't lock me away. And they don't
Well, they
lock
wouldn't
away
let you
half
in. They wouldn't let you in.
Yeah,
Forget
no, of course
locking you away. You wouldn't
they
get
don't
in.
lock away
Check
half
his
the
health.
population who haven't had the jab. That's the medical apartheid situation. You're seeing... you're collating different...
I'm not collating
No, it's
different
like
things,
when-
because
so-
you're talking...
No,
you also said about body autonomy.
Yeah.
So,
I made a
so that's the
choice. I
same
made a
thing again.
Exactly. That is bodily autonomy.
Yeah.
So he had the jab to protect himself.
No, but you wouldn't have got in.
Sorry,
Hang on.
When I go to
You wouldn't have got
Vietnam,
in. Sorry, you
I
wouldn't
take my
have-
malaria pills.
You wouldn't have got in though without
No,
the jab. So
so I
therefore,
made a choice.
There is
I
body
made an informed
autonomy,
choice.
but there's also
Yeah.
you are in a sense being forced if
But
you want
what
to
was
go
the
there.
consequence of me not making that choice? I wouldn't be able to go on
We wouldn't be
holiday.
able to go.
But I wouldn't be locked away in my home. I wouldn't be told who I'm allowed in my home. I wouldn't be told when I'm allowed to leave my home. I wouldn't be imprisoned in my
Well,
own
you just
country.
wouldn't be allowed to. Well, you wouldn't be imprisoned
There's a
in the
massive
country because
difference
you wouldn't
between
even be
that.
allowed
Massive
in the
difference,
country.
no.
But how is that level of body autonomy? How is that acceptable then if you are not accepting that?
You can't see how those two
Taking
things are
No, I'm
entirely
asking
different.
you. That's not me.
I've just
you can't say.
explained
I'm
it.
asking you how that's different.
I made a personal choice to visit a country as a leisurable experience on a holiday.
You've made a personal
My
choice, but you
personal-
wouldn't have got in anyway.
No.
So it's not really your personal choice.
Yes, it's a choice because
they
I
wouldn't
didn't
let
have to
you
go
in.
on holiday. I didn't
Well, you
have
didn't have to
to
go on
Sri
holiday there.
Lanka.
That's
It's
the
a
choice
choice.
you made. But
Whereas
the
my-
choice about the vaccine you didn't make because you wouldn't have been allowed in had you not had that vaccine.
But the difference is people in Austria who haven't had the vaccine, they've made a personal choice, but their individual freedoms are being taken away if they haven't made the right choice. I don't see how you can't see the difference there.
I can see the difference, but I'm saying that they are the same difference because they ultimately result in the same thing.
bonkers.
Anyway, let's move on because I'm asking, is getting vaccinated a matter of personal choice or a civic duty? And lots of you have already been getting in touch with your views. Anna says definitely personal choice. I'm against a coercive stance or mandatory vaccines that will create nothing but division in society.
Yes, Anna.
Mary says it's both. It's your personal choice, but morally, it's your civic duty. No, I like that. As a vaccination programme is only properly effective if enough of the population are vaccinated. And Bill says the vaccine should always be about the individual and their right to choose for themselves. There's also a poll up on Twitter today throughout the show asking that very question. So 78% say it's a personal choice. Keep your thoughts coming because that could change throughout the programme. Still to come, though, it's time for the Great British Debate. This hour, should UK troops protect the borders of other countries? British Royal Engineers have been deployed to Poland's border with Belarus as tensions escalate over a migrant crisis there. But with the crisis on our own shores, with record numbers of migrants crossing the Channel this week, should we be helping out other countries? We'll be back after this short break.
You're watching GB News live across the UK and the world on our digital stream.
GB News is Britain's news channel.
We are the UK's home of discussion and debate from all perspectives.
We are here for you. Don't forget to join our YouTube community by clicking on that subscribe button.
And if you want the GB News app, you can click and catch up on programmes anytime.
We love to hear from you, so email us.
gbviews@gbnews.uk.
Thanks for being part of the GB News family.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilized conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
I'm Colin Brazier. I've reported from more than 70 countries around the world, covered wars from Afghanistan to Iraq, from Lebanon to the Balkans. I'm trying to bring that experience, that feel for events, to the studio. And something else. I'm ready to give an opinion. Today's stories with a spark. Brazier from 8 p.m. weekdays on GB News.
So good afternoon. It's time now for our big debate this hour. British troops have been deployed to Poland's border with Belarus as tensions escalate over a migrant crisis. The Polish Defence Minister said that British Royal Engineers have been sent on a reconnaissance exercise with NATO's allies, with a standoff between Minsk and Warsaw over the fate of hundreds of migrants trying to reach the European Union. But with a migrant crisis on our own shores, is this the right move? Let's start by speaking to the former British ambassador to Russia and Chatham House fellow Sir Andrew Wood. Andrew, welcome to the programme. Firstly, now Warsaw has accused Vladimir Putin of exploiting the migrant crisis in an attempt to destabilise the West. What is he talking about? Because people might not fully understand what's actually going on.
What he's trying to do is to force people across the border into Poland against the will of Poland. He's also trying to consolidate the Russian position in Belarus because it has an ambition to absorb that particular country very closely into a dependent role within the Russian Federation. So those are long-standing aims. The migrant crisis is a way of manufacturing a means to achieve them.
An interesting route to try and do that. I'm confused as to how that will destabilise things. Can you sort of explain why that will create a level of instability?
There are now approximately 14,000, mostly Iraqi migrants or people who wish to move into Europe in Belarus. Belarus has forced them to the border under armed control and is helping them to get through the barriers. One can sympathize with the dilemma which those people now face and the deceptive way they've been lured into what is a trap. And at the same time, to feel that each country should have the right to decide who comes in and under what means. It's not as though they would be allowed into Russia, let's say, because they wanted to go to Russia in en masse. They are being forced through the European Union in general, in particular, they say to Germany or potentially to the UK, by illegal means. And if you let that lot in, the reasoning goes, you will be opening another floodgate of refugees into Europe in general.
Being coerced to leave Belarus and get through to Poland, what are the Russians doing to make that happen?
They've armed their soldiers. Their soldiers have gathered them into large groups and pushed them towards the border.
People who actually want to try and get into Europe via Poland. Do you think
that's a different matter?
Okay. Well, I'm going to ask you then, with regard to the British troops' involvement then, why are we getting involved in this?
I believe there are 10 engineers who can help the Poles to establish effective barriers. The Poles are a NATO ally. It also concerns the 3 Baltic states where I've been recently myself, where again they have been subject to attempted invasion, to put it rather dramatically, through Belarus. This is a new problem of a similar type to those that have occurred in Greece and in Italy earlier. And I don't think we have the proper means to deal with it. And besides which, it is taking place against the will of the countries affected.
Wow. Well, Sir Andrew Wood, thank you for clarifying all of that. Sir Andrew Wood, he's a former British ambassador to Russia. Wow. Well, I can also speak to Sam Ashworth-Hayes, the Director of Studies at the Henry Jackson Society, a transatlantic foreign policy think tank. Sam, do you agree with the decision to send British troops to the border?
I mean, I think as Sir Anthony said, it's a very small number, and it really makes no difference in terms of our ability to deploy force elsewhere. And it's it's a good gesture towards a friendly country who needs assistance.
Well, you say that it's a small number, but we currently have a bit of a situation here in the UK, and you just said it wouldn't really make much difference. So why are we bothering?
I mean, it won't make much difference in terms of our capacity. I mean, we do have a situation in the UK, but realistically, if these soldiers were in Britain, it's not like we'd be... sorry, I can hear something in my headphones. It's not as if we'd be deploying them in order to guard the borders anyway. I mean, right now, we're intercepting boats in the Channel and escorting them into Dover, so we're not going to be pushing them back just because we have more soldiers on per hand. That's not how it would work.
So what exactly are we doing then in this area? What are the troops actually doing when they're there?
I think my understanding is they're just providing engineering support, sort of seeing what could be done to better sort of put installations on the border with Belarus. But, I mean, like, just because it's not a significant deployment in terms of manpower doesn't mean it's not going to be helpful.
I mean, isn't there the argument, though? You said that they wouldn't be, it wouldn't make much difference if they were utilised in the UK, but there's loads of people, the RNLI, which is a voluntary organisation that is relying on people to assist with all those crossing the Channel here in the UK. Surely we should be using our forces to assist ourselves. Aren't we getting ourselves into a bit of a problem here? We could end up in hot water with Russia.
I mean, I think the marginal value of deploying here. I mean, unless I don't really see how 10 further British engineers or whatever the figure was being in Britain would sort of allow us to bring vastly many more people across the Channel. Because remember, right now our border force are intercepting these boats and escorting them into port. So I don't really think that that's the same technical set of skills.
But it seems to be the sentiment of us doing that. We may be getting ourselves involved in something that could end up quite nasty. Sam, thank you very much for joining me. That's Sam Ashworth-Hayes. He's the Director of Studies at the Henry Jackson Society. Well, stay with us because after the break, we'll continue this debate. You'll hear the thoughts of my panel and, of course, your thoughts too. But first, let's get your latest news headlines.
Hello, I'm Karen Roberts. Here are the latest headlines. COP26 President Alok Sharma says he expects the Global Climate Summit to end this afternoon with an agreement. It's after the UN released its third climate draft agreement this morning as negotiations extended into extra time. It maintains a reference to phasing out inefficient fossil fuel subsidies, but sticking points include how much finance rich countries should send to poorer ones to help them adapt. Richard Ratcliffe, the husband of a British-Iranian woman detained in Iran, is ending his hunger strike after 21 days. Mr. Ratcliffe has been camping outside the Foreign Office in central London, striking over his wife's detention in Iran since 2016. Scottish Tory leader Douglas Ross has apologised after failing to declare thousands of pounds in outside earnings. Mr. Ross was forced to refer himself to the Standards Commissioner after he received more than £28,000 from 2 additional jobs. As well as being an MP, the politician is also an MSP and works as a football referee. Celebrities have shared their support for Britney Spears as her conservatorship was terminated after nearly 14 years. Heiress Paris Hilton told her near 17 million Twitter followers that the ruling was long overdue. Singer Cher also voiced her support. Britney had been fighting to end the complex legal agreement that she was placed under in 2008, which restricted her personal and professional life. And London has kicked off its Christmas festivities with the world's largest light switch on. More than 1 million LED lights have been turned on simultaneously across 20 West End streets. The displays can be seen across the capital's most well-known hotspots, including Mayfair, Piccadilly Circus and Leicester Square. I'll be back at 5 o'clock.
You're watching GB News live across the UK and the world on our digital stream.
GB News is Britain's news channel.
We are the UK's home of discussion and debate from all perspectives.
We are here for you. Don't forget to join our YouTube community by clicking on that subscribe button.
And if you want the GB News app, you can click and catch up on programmes anytime.
We love to hear from you, so email us.
gbviews@gbnews.uk.
Thanks for being part of the GB News family. My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilized conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
I'm Colin Brazier. I've reported from more than 70 countries around the world, covered wars from Afghanistan to Iraq, from Lebanon to the Balkans. I'm trying to bring that experience, that feel for events, to the studio. And something else. I'm ready to give an opinion. Today's stories with a spark. Brazier from 8 p.m. weekdays on GB News.
Now, back to our Great British debate this hour, with British troops being deployed to Poland's border with Belarus as tensions escalate as the migrant crisis gets worse. I'm asking, should UK troops protect the borders of other countries? You've heard what our experts had to say. Now let's see what our panel thinks. Leo, Calvin and you. Me, I talk about myself, I don't know. OK, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's fair for British troops to be deployed. I mean, it shows solidarity with the EU, which I think is important at this time, because this is obviously a manufactured crisis. So Putin and Lukashenko, there's Belarusian travel agents in Iraq basically selling trips, promising easy flights and then a safe passage across through Belarus, through Poland to Germany or the UK. So by saying, yeah, exactly. And they put these migrants in a horrific circumstance. There's freezing conditions on the border now, and they really want to manufacture this crisis where there will be people starving and dying. So then they can say, oh look how evil Europe are. So I think it's fair for Poland to be acting as a deterrent, and I think it's fair for British troops to be supporting them because we're actually protecting our borders by doing this, because they're not going to stop at Poland.
Well, I wish we would protect our borders. Sorry, Calvin, go on. Yeah. Really?
Poland's one of our oldest allies. I think it's great that we can support them, but it also shows that our troops are capable of policing our borders. So let's get the troops across our borders and stop these illegal immigrants coming over the channel constantly. Let's do something about it. It won't be pretty, but it needs to be done.
But what about the fact that by getting embroiled in this, we could end up being on a much wider conflict, which could involve Russia? And whilst you say, as Leo said, that we are, our EU friends, who don't seem all that friendly on many levels, if it does kick off, who is going to come to our assistance? America won't.
No, it's a good question. And Russia is one of the greatest threats in the world right now. Russia and China, I see as two biggest threats to the West. But that doesn't mean we should back down. It means we should double up. And I think we need to strengthen our armed forces. They've become so weak over the years. We've lacked investment, and we need to take them seriously again, especially now that we're not part of the European Union. We won't have... we'll have strong allies, but we won't have that reinforcement to rely on. And America is taking American interests first, which they have every right to do. So we, of course, need to strengthen our own.
Yeah. So we show strength by sending 10 people down there to do some engineering work.
It's the token, it's the symbolism. It's the symbolism. And it is quite a serious situation. So Putin has sent nuclear-capable bombers over Belarus, which is, that's, I don't know if you remember, the 80s, but the threat of nuclear annihilation was quite real. But it's really saber-rattling by Putin and Lukashenko because they're both incredibly weak at home, because they're both dictators who have become more and more authoritarian, more autocratic. There's more political prisoners in Russia now than there was during the Soviet Union in 1987. So they're really tightening their grip on their own population. There's demonstrations against them. People don't trust them, and people can get their news from the internet. They can get it from the GBNews app. So they're not just hearing the state, whatever the state feeds them. So I think it's important for the UK to show strength and to show some sort of unity with Europe, that we're not going to be a pushover.
Can I just check with you both? Are we pronouncing Belarus correctly?
Yeah.
Wow. What were you thinking?
I thought it was Belarus.
No, it's Belarus,
okay,
for sure, Belarus.
I heard an MP pronounce it that way once.
Well, that must be the way it's done then, if they do it.
I went to Belarus a few years ago to film a video game, funnily enough.
Oh, yeah.
It was great.
Interesting.
Film a video game?
I didn't see that one, sorry. But Calvin, my thoughts though, and yes, you talk about us showing strength and solidarity to ourselves. I don't see anyone else really joining in on this one. If it's so important to us, then why are the rest of the European or the EU not taking part in this particular one?
They've got their own struggles and maybe an element of cowardice, but I don't think we need to worry about what they're doing too much. We need to really focus on what we are doing. And like I said, since we've left the EU, but also since probably post-World War II, actually, the disinvestment in the armed forces has been incredible. So we need to really up that. And I think we can take away from foreign aid, we can take away from the money that we throw at the NHS every year and put a lot of that into our armed forces, because we are on our own in the world. And people say, oh, because Great Britain's had its time, it's had its day. No, it hasn't. Our peak is yet to come. We've got to stop talking down our country and start talking it up again.
Well, I think our borders might be safer and have fewer migrants attempting to get in if we didn't get involved in conflicts in the Middle East and bomb these countries. I know it's what the woke progressives say, but I kind of agree with this.
Well, you've just said that, but then doesn't it look like we're doing it again? So here we are.
We're not bombing Belarus.
Here we are.
We're not bombing Poland.
Here we are going back into another area that really is not our terrain, getting involved in some form of conflict that it really has nothing ultimately to do with us, only potentially to protect ourselves from maybe migrants coming across to us. I think that's what you're saying. You're intimating that is the reasoning why we are doing this. And yet then what will happen, and what often happens, is we end up harbouring bad feeling, and people start looking at us as if, well, you got involved, that's why we've come to you because of this, and we could start this all over again. So I don't see how we're protecting ourselves by doing this.
So I do think we have a moral imperative to support our allies, and not just our allies, to help countries around the world. So, like, for example, it's the approach that is wrong. So, for example, Afghanistan is a very recent one where we mishandled it, not just us, but America, massively so. But I don't think we should have not gone into Afghanistan. I think we should have stayed in Afghanistan. I think we should still be there now, supporting the Afghans. I don't think we should have left them to the terrorists of that area. I think we have a moral or a strong nation, so we should, the big guy should lend a hand to the little guys.
Yeah, and I've got to say, people aren't coming to this country because we've bombed them and they're having a terrible time. They're coming to this country because it's a great country. So really, if you want fewer migrants coming to the country, you should be thankful for the great work that Boris Johnson is doing in making this country worse.
Yeah, but help people make their own countries better, and then they won't have less reason to leave.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, but then there's, I just still can't see why we should be getting involved in this conflict. And the normal person on the street who's doing their own thing, trying to pay for their gas bills and everything else like that, is looking at that thinking, what's going on here? The normal person on the street who will maybe have an area where they might live, which could be, have an influx of people from all other countries. There's nothing wrong with that at all. But if we have this huge waves of constant immigration coming in and it's unvetted, then a scenario that really squeezes your own infrastructure.
Yeah.
So I'm looking at this and thinking, why are we getting ourselves involved in something that could turn really nasty?
To me, you're making sense, but it's not either or. We need to do both. So we need to help our nation, our friends and neighbours out, but we also need to focus on what's happening at home. And you said there's an influx of illegal immigration. There is, and it needs addressing seriously and now. And for so long, the Tories have had so many excuses, such as EU law gets in the way, this and that gets in the way. It no longer does. It's time for them to clamp down on the amount of illegal immigration in this country and solve it, because infrastructure is dying. The NHS is crippled every year, and that's not being helped by tens of thousands of people coming over.
Well, the NHS is helped by a lot of migrants coming over and working in it.
Well,
yes, but not illegal immigrants.
Well, that's fine. But that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But if the whole thing is buckling in any case, because actually you might have that, then you've got more people using it as well. So, and they could be from all over the world again. So that argument can work both ways. Well, today we're asking, should UK troops protect the borders of other countries? And now it's time to hear what you have to say. And lots of you have been saying a lot of things. Peter says, yes, we should. Poland are one of the few European nations besides ourselves that pay their way in NATO. And this has the potential to end up as something bigger. Yeah, where are NATO? Surely NATO should be involved. We should, well, they're never around, are they? We should 100% help our friends and allies that keep their commitments. That's what the UK has done since World War I. Paul says no. If troops are available, they should be in Dover protecting our border from abuse. David says, be great if they started by protecting their own country, never mind others. Andrea says, most certainly, this crisis affects us more than it does Poland. Interesting, Andrea. Earlier on, Calvin was saying something about that as well. Richard says, yes, Poland are NATO allies who need help. Did we not promise to support such allies? Yes, but I'm sure there were other countries that also said they would, and where are they? Russell says, do other nations provide troops to protect UK borders and shores? I doubt they would even care to offer to help. Should we need it? Well, that was one of my thoughts. I was thinking, Calvin and Leo, that if we had problems, would Poland come out and help us the way we're helping? And I think the answer would be no.
Well, people aren't coming into Dover to then travel through Britain and get to Poland.
Well, that's the point, though. So who would help us then? If who
Iceland?
Would help us?
No, I mean, Britain's the destination. Britain's great.
Well, that's what you're saying. They might not all be coming to Britain. Who would help us? If, by your logic, because we're not attached near anyone, then there's no one to help. So we're on our own. So don't we have to be a little bit more cautious?
We are on our own, but I don't think that's a good enough reason to not help other people. It's like if the kid's in the playground and one kid's being bullied, you don't say to the kid, oh, don't help them because they wouldn't help you. You say, go and help them. Be a good sport.
Well, no, if you use it as a little kid in the playground, I'd have to help the kid in the playground. But that's not the point. I'm looking at it from a strategic perspective.
But you don't do something in favour of what you can get out of it, do you?
No, but that's not the point, is it? We're looking at the strategic positioning of the UK and understanding that if, by Leo's logic, your allies are those who are, if someone is actually coming through to your country, so those people will help you, who are our allies is what I'm asking.
Well, I mean, Poland is in NATO, so, I mean, they would help us if, if we do descend into some sort of thermonuclear war, then, well, they're not going to help us, like, police our borders.
Well, exactly. The way you said that, as if, really, but yet we're helping other people police theirs, but yet not even policing our own.
They're coming through those borders to get to Germany, to get to the UK.
How do you know they come to the UK, though? That's a very broad brush. They might be just trying to get out of Belarus and go anywhere else.
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly what they're trying to do. But they are trying to get into Poland and then travel through to Germany and travel through to the UK and countries where, you can come in and make a good life for yourself.
I don't know. That's a bit of a vague one there. I'll let you off on that because we've got to go to the break. So after that, we'll be joined by royal commentator Richard Fitzwilliams. It's been a big week for Meghan and Harry. Oh, my goodness. I didn't write the monologue today. I'll do it tomorrow because I want to see how the story progresses. I'll tell you why in a moment. But first, let's have a look at the weather.
Looking ahead to this evening's weather, and the UK is looking mostly dry, though cloudier in the east as well as far west. Let's take a look at the details. A fair amount of cloud around across the southwest of England this evening, but equally a few clear spells too. A mild feel if you're heading out with temperatures between 11 and 13 Celsius. For London and the southeast, skies will generally be cloudy this evening and there may be a few passing light showers. Some clear spells across South Wales and their skies are clear there. Those temperatures will be dropping off quite quickly this evening into single figures. For the Midlands, a mixture of clear spells and some areas of cloud, but it is a dry picture with light winds and temperatures around 10 or 11 Celsius for most places. More cloud as we head towards Yorkshire and northeast England, and this may be capable of producing a few light showers. However, most places will be dry and relatively mild for a November evening. Quite a bit of cloud towards the east coast of Scotland, but further west there will be clear skies to take us into the evening, allowing it to quickly become chilly. Maybe a few clear breaks towards the east of Northern Ireland, but on the whole it's a cloudy and mild picture with some spots of rain encroaching from the west. And tomorrow, clear skies will gradually be eroded from the west and east by cloud, but where it stays clear, some fog is likely. And that is how the weather is shaping up overnight and into tomorrow morning.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
You're watching GB News live across the UK and the world on our digital stream.
GB News is Britain's news channel.
We are the UK's home of discussion and debate from all perspectives.
We are here for you. Don't forget to join our YouTube community by clicking on that subscribe button.
And if you want the GB News app, you can click and catch up on programmes anytime.
We love to hear from you, so email us.
gbviews@gbnews.uk.
Thanks for being part of the GB News family.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilized conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
I'm Colin Brazier. I've reported from more than 70 countries around the world, covered wars from Afghanistan to Iraq, from Lebanon to the Balkans. I'm trying to bring that experience, that feel for events, to the studio. And something else. I'm ready to give an opinion. Today's stories with a spark. Brazier from 8 p.m. weekdays on GB News.
Now, there's always something going on in the royal household, and this week has been no different. The Duchess of Sussex has claimed Prince Harry faced constant berating from members of the royal family over the strained relationship she had with her father. The revelations are in text messages between Meghan and the Sussex's former communications secretary. Well, who better to delve into this with than royal commentator Richard Fitzwilliams. Richard, oh, this is just so juicy, isn't it? Come on then, talk to me.
Well, it's not a question so much of it being juicy. It's a question that it is building up to something that was not expected, certainly not in February, when Lord Justice Warby ruled that we're dealing, of course, with the letter that Meghan wrote to her father. This was 3 months after their wedding in August 2018. And it would appear that, firstly, this letter was written with a definite feeling that it might be made public. I hasten to add that Meghan's legal counsel would make it absolutely clear that, in their view, that it might be has no bearing on whether or not it should be. But what appears, and this is not surprising, to have been of considerable concern to members of the royal family, was, of course, what was actually happening with Thomas Markle. I mean, actually, to begin with, it's puzzled me. From the very start, Harry actually never met him. And this was extraordinary. The first time he was actually due to appear, we know he was reclusive. That is true, and also he's of an advanced age. But the facts of the matter were that he was going to appear at the wedding in front of a huge audience, but without, it would seem, rehearsals or whatever. It appears members of the royal family were extremely concerned what was going on. There was an interview, in fact, he gave to the Mirror in 2017. The facts were that he clearly was, well, I mean, it was abundantly clear he'd used paparazzi photographs before the wedding, and then, of course, he couldn't attend the wedding because of his health. Yeah. And so all of this was building into into something that was obviously of great concern to members of the royal family and also to those in the royal household. There's a very good expose by Camilla Tominey in the Telegraph today, 2 pages, attempting to show, and I think it does show, that members of the royal household actually behaved in as reasonable way in many cases they possibly could, given the demands of the Sussexes and given the Sussexes are so controlling. This has been a very bad week for them because, on the one hand, the judgment in Meghan's favour in February may conceivably be overturned if the Court of Appeal rules that that it should go to trial. And if that were the case, it would be absolutely sensational, because there have been several very significant developments regarding this. Firstly, Meghan intended, it would seem, this letter to be something that might be in the public domain were it put there. She didn't want it to be, but she considered that it might be. And the second thing, of course, is the fact she misled the court with reference to Finding Freedom, that trashy book which they were involved in.
The unauthorised biography, supposedly. Oh, dear. But you see, that doesn't wash, does it, really, when you say, oh, well, I might have forgotten that I didn't mention and that we had... I mean, this is not looking good at all. And I'm wondering, I mean, do you get the sense that the Americans are looking on this very disfavourably as well? Or does she still have that core of hardliners who just won't see anything wrong?
Well, I would suggest that in America, it's overwhelmingly favourable still toward her. Certainly it was after the Oprah interview. I think that if that interview is taken apart somewhat and examined, people will take something very different. Were she to go into politics, for example, her opponents would have a lot of material there, because a lot of that was her truth. When it comes to court, it's the truth. That's the problem.
There's a very big difference there. It's funny, isn't it? So what's next then? What's the next thing with this whole saga? Because we've got she's apologised now to the court. She's acknowledged that she had briefed the authors of the book. What's the next thing that we need to sort of start looking out for? What's going on?
Well, the next thing is, this is the appeal of Associated Newspapers against the judgment in February, which went in Meghan's favour. Lord Justice Warby, his judgment was that the letter was private, and under the laws of privacy and confidentiality. Interestingly, the latter dates to Prince Albert in 1849, when he won a case against a publisher of his etchings. This was very clearly in Meghan's favour. The judgment now of the 3 judges of appeal, maybe, we don't know, maybe Meghan's legal counsel would say that the right to privacy still is absolute, but it may be that this goes to trial. Now, if that happens, it will be an international cause célèbre with Meghan conceivably against her father in the witness box, and that would be something that would be the ultimate nightmare. Certainly it wouldn't be good for anybody, for the royal family, certainly not for the Sussexes. I mean, this is why members of the royal family do not go to law unless they're pushed to extremes.
Because I've got a feeling that she'll probably enjoy a little bit of drama.
She wouldn't enjoy that drama.
Who knows? I don't know about that, Richard.
That wouldn't be a drama, that would be an apocalypse.
That would be. It'd be like
could be.
The Crown
it could
Gone Wrong.
most certainly be.
That Netflix thing. I'll never watch that. I never watched that. Thank you so much, Richard. Lovely to talk to you. Richard Fitzwilliam, royal commentator. You're watching GB News. I'm Nana Akua. More to come in the next hour. I'm Nana Akua, and for this hour, me and my panel will be taking on some of the big topics that are hitting the headlines right now. The show is all about opinion. It's mine, it's theirs, and of course, it's yours. We'll be debating, discussing, and at times we will disagree, but no one will be cancelled. So joining me today is comedian Leo Kearse and also Conservative commentator Calvin Robinson. Still to come for my difficult conversation today, I'll be joined by superstar singer Sunita. Yes, it's true. She's not only a sensation on stage, but also an extremely loving mother to Zach and Magdalena, who she adopted when they were just 20 months old. I'll be speaking to her about her decision to adopt and being a mum of 2 fabulous children. The Great British Debate this hour. Would you consider a vegan lifestyle? The Vegan Society says that world leaders didn't focus on the sustainability of veganism at COP26. We'll be speaking to them soon. And of course, we want to hear your thoughts. Email gbviews@gbnews.uk or tweet us at gbnews. But first, let's get your latest headlines.
Hello, I'm Karen Roberts. This is your news at 5 o'clock. COP26 President Alok Sharma says he expects the Global Climate Summit to end this afternoon with an agreement. It's after the UN released its third climate draft agreement this morning as negotiations extended into extra time. It maintains a reference to phasing out inefficient fossil fuel subsidies, but sticking points include how much cash rich countries should send to poorer ones to help them adapt. China, one of the world's biggest polluters, says the final declaration is not ideal, but it would not reopen the text. Mr. Sharma says it's a balanced package that delivers on expectations.
Our climate ambition and action to date have fallen short of delivering on the promises made in Paris. As I said at the start of this conference, we will succeed or fail as one. We do want to conclude this COP this afternoon. Friends, the world is watching us. They're willing us to reach an agreement here for the sake of our planet and for present and future generations.
The US Special Presidential Envoy for Climate, John Kerry, says this agreement is a very important step in the right direction. He praised the 200 countries in attendance for approaching the summit with what he calls a remarkable spirit, but urged them to get the draft agreement over the line.
We are going to ratify this, accept this text, initiate a critical set of choices for all citizens around the world for this decade, so that we can in fact guarantee to our children, our grandchildren, to the next generations that we did our job.
Richard Ratcliffe, the husband of a British Iranian woman detained in Iran, has ended his hunger strike after 21 days. Mr. Ratcliffe has been camping outside the Foreign Office in central London, striking over Nazanin Zaghari Ratcliffe's detention in Iran since 2016. He's trying to put pressure on the British government to help free his wife. He's Prime Minister Boris Johnson saying he hasn't dealt adequately with the case.
He hasn't dealt adequately with Nazanin's case for years. He hasn't honoured his promises, and we live with those consequences. You know, my job is to keep going for Gabriella. We probably hoped we'd get a breakthrough doing this. We haven't yet. I didn't want to go out in an ambulance. I wanted to walk out with my head held high.
Scottish Tory leader Douglas Ross has been accused of being knee-deep in sleaze after failing to declare thousands of pounds in outside earnings. Mr Ross was forced to refer himself to the Standards Commissioner after he received more than £28,000 from 2 additional jobs. As well as being an MP, the politician is also an MSP and works as a football referee. The SNP said he was failing the Scottish people and needs to focus on one job. A man has been arrested in connection with a double stabbing in West London last night, which left one man dead and a pensioner critically injured. A man believed to be in his 20s died at the scene in Albany Parade in Brentford, while the woman in her 80s remains in hospital. A man in his 30s has been arrested on suspicion of murder and attempted murder. Celebrities have shared their support for Britney Spears as her conservatorship was terminated after nearly 14 years. Heiress Paris Hilton told her near 17 million Twitter followers that the ruling was so long overdue. Singer Cher also shared her support. The pop superstar had been fighting to end the complex legal agreement that she was placed under in 2008 amid substance abuse and mental health issues. The 39-year-old has thanked her fans after regaining full legal control of her personal life and career. And London has kicked off its Christmas festivities with the world's largest light switch on. More than 1 million LED lights have been turned on simultaneously across 20 West End streets. The displays can be seen across the capital's most well-known areas, including Mayfair, Piccadilly Circus and Leicester Square. I'll bring you the latest headlines in half an hour. Until then, it's back to Nana Akua.
Right, so let's do this. Let's start this hour with the Great British Debate. We're focusing on veganism. Now, Claridge's star chef has left his role after he disagreed with the bosses over the vegan menu. Daniel Hum wanted to create a fully plant-based kitchen at the hotel's fine dining restaurant. Whilst respecting his direction, the hotel says it's not the path that they wish to follow. So I'm asking, would you consider a vegan lifestyle? I considered it. No. This week at COP26, I love meat though, I love lamb. I know they're cute, but they taste so good. This week at COP26, the Vegan Society says world leaders didn't discuss the benefits of a vegan diet enough, probably because they were all eating steak, although I don't know, I wasn't there. I'm joined now by the Senior Campaigns and Policy Officer for the Vegan Society, Tim Thorpe. Tim, thank you so much for joining us. Now, talk to me, Tim.
Thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure. Now, you arrived back from Glasgow today. What were you hoping to hear about vegan diets and how they could contribute in this whole climate situation?
Yeah, well, what we'd like to see is some targets. So the UK Committee on Climate Change has recommended to the government a 20% reduction target for animal products over the next 10 years. Obviously, we would like to go much further than that, and we think that that would put us on a pathway to plant-based diets in the future. And we feel that that's where we need to go. But so far, the government's distanced itself from targets like that. And unfortunately, food and agriculture in general hasn't been high enough up the agenda of COP. So food and farming makes up about a third of global emissions, but none of the major countries have made any specific emissions reduction targets in that sector. So we were trying to highlight that and highlight the benefits of plant-based diets in terms of the climate and also the biodiversity crisis.
So why did you become a vegan?
So it was actually from studying environmental science. That's my background. And at that time, I learned about the impact that farming has on the planet, particularly animal farming. So it's the world's leading driver of deforestation is animal farming, and that's particularly true in the Amazon rainforest. The vast majority of the habitable land on Earth that we actually use for farming. Around 80% of this is for animal farming, despite the fact that it only contributes less than 20% of global calories. So it was those reasons that kind of got me into it in the first place. And I think once you stop eating animals, it does give you a bit of time to reflect maybe on some of the ethics as well and whether you feel comfortable eating those products.
Do you miss certain elements of meat or not really?
No, not really. I think if it's something you don't eat for a period of time, you start to view it in a very different way. You see animals in a very different way, and you really, essentially, you no longer see it as food. I don't really miss meat at all.
You would do if you were really hungry. No, I'm joking. Listen, I want to ask you though. Okay, so people talk about, and I've looked at this in quite a lot of detail and studied it quite heavily to find out more about veganism. I'm a nutritionist myself, so I'm kind of with you in many respects of the benefits of eating a good diet. But what makes you think that if we all became plant-based, that in the end we wouldn't end up chopping down even more trees because there's more people and we might end up using more soya to feed ourselves rather than the soy that's grown to feed the cattle?
Yeah, so that's a really common question that we get asked. The vast majority of soy that's grown, particularly in these deforestation areas like the Amazon rainforest, is for animal feed. And basically, even if people switched from eating those animal products directly to soy, although there's a much wider variety of kind of plant proteins available to people, the amount of soy that we need to grow would vastly reduce. And that's because most of the energy and the protein in those plant crops that we feed to animals, we don't get back out of that of the animal when it's slaughtered. So we essentially waste most of that energy in the animal's own metabolism and its movement throughout its life. So it's a much less efficient way of producing food. And the key driver here is land use. So the fact that plant-based diets are so much more efficient, it means we can use a lot less land, and that results in a lot less water use, a lot less pollution, and a whole host of other environmental benefits.
See, to me, it still doesn't add up, because you have more people eating more plant-based things. So why would you use less land? I would suspect that you'd need more land, wouldn't you? I mean, not unless I'm getting this really wrong and I'm going mad in my head here. I'm looking at it thinking there are billions of people on the earth. Whilst there are lots of animals who you would feed, there are way more people that will need feeding. So I'm just not seeing how it's sustainable.
I think that's an interesting point. So for the same amount of people, let's assume, the plant-based diets require much, much less land and resources. But as you say, yes, with the population growing, then in fact that's even more of a reason to go towards plant-based diets, because we just don't have any of the planet left. So yeah, I think with populations increasing, we need to use as little land as possible, as little resources as possible, and that's where plant-based diets come in. So yeah, as I explained, so around half of crops grown globally are actually fed to animals, and we use a huge amount of arable land to grow crops where we could be growing more food for people, or just making more space for nature. So we need land for sustainable forestry, we need land for kind of the recovery of habitats and biodiversity, and switching diets and people switching to plant-based diets gives us the opportunity to do that. So what we've been calling for is just a little bit more support for people to help do that, and yeah, for people to start making those changes themselves in their own life.
So what do you think of Daniel Hum then? He wanted to try and introduce a fully vegan menu.
Yeah, I think it's really positive, and I think we're seeing people who are really passionate about food and in the catering industry, in the restaurant industry, really helping to drive this change. So yeah, people like Daniel, I think it's a really positive step. It's a shame that Claridge's weren't happy with that menu and didn't want to go in that direction. But I'm sure he'll go on to do fantastic things. And we've seen just so many more restaurants open up, and restaurant chains add more vegan options and make it more available to people. So I think that's really positive. The thing that we need to see next is a bit of an overall strategy and commitment from government, and a little bit of leadership, in the same way that we've seen in the kind of energy sector and the transport sector, to kind of change those incentives and help people make those choices.
Well, listen, Tim, it's really good to talk to you. Thank you so much for your thoughts. That's Tim Thorpe. He's a Senior Campaigns and Policy Officer for the Vegan Society. I don't think I like the idea of plant-based food. There is some lovely food, but I still like duck, lamb. Lovely. Coming up after the break, I'll be joined by singing sensation Sunita to talk about her experience of adoption in my difficult conversation section. But first, let's get your latest weather.
Looking ahead to this evening's weather, and the UK is looking mostly dry, though cloudier in the east as well as far west. Let's take a look at the details. A fair amount of cloud around across the southwest of England this evening, but equally a few clear spells too. A mild feel if you're heading out, with temperatures between 11 and 13 Celsius. For London and the southeast, skies will generally be cloudy this evening, and there may be a few passing light showers. Some clear spells across South Wales, and their skies are clear there. Those temperatures will be dropping off quite quickly this evening into single figures. For the Midlands, a mixture of clear spells and some areas of cloud, but it is a dry picture with light winds and temperatures around 10 or 11 Celsius for most places. More cloud as we head towards Yorkshire and northeast England, and this may be capable of producing a few light showers. However, most places will be dry and relatively mild for a November evening. Quite a bit of cloud towards the east coast of Scotland, but further west there will be clear skies to take us into the evening, allowing it to quickly become chilly. Maybe a few clear breaks towards the east of Northern Ireland, but on the whole it's a cloudy and mild picture with some spots of rain encroaching from the west. And tomorrow, clear skies will gradually be eroded from the west and east by cloud, but where it stays clear, some fog is likely. And that is how the weather is shaping up overnight and into tomorrow morning.
On Mark Dolan tonight, ex-Blue Peter presenter and star of I'm a Celebrity and Most Haunted, Yvette Fielding is my big guest for Mark Meets. Following COP26, we'll speak to the author of Apocalypse Never, which says climate change is no catastrophe. Showbiz News live from Hollywood with Kinsey Schofield. Shark attacks explained in FAQs. And in my monologue, it's time for Boris to deal with the big problems this country faces. The economy, securing our borders and standing up for British values. And in The Clash, is pornography morally wrong? See you at 9.
You're watching GB News live across the UK and the world on our digital stream.
GB News is Britain's news channel.
We are the UK's home of discussion and debate from all perspectives.
We are here for you. Don't forget to join our YouTube community by clicking on that subscribe button.
And if you want the GB News app, you can click and catch up on programmes anytime.
We love to hear from you, so email us.
gbviews@gbnews.uk.
Thanks for being part of the GB News family.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilized conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
I'm Colin Brazier. I've reported from more than 70 countries around the world, covered wars from Afghanistan to Iraq, from Lebanon to the Balkans. I'm trying to bring that experience, that feel for events, to the studio. And something else. I'm ready to give an opinion. Today's stories with a spark. Brazier from 8 p.m. weekdays on GB News.
So, good afternoon. If you've just tuned in, where have you been? I'm Nana Akua. This is GB News, and it's time for my difficult conversation. And this week, I'm joined by singing sensation Sunita. She's not only a star on stage, but an extremely loving mother to Zach and Magdalena, who she adopted when they were just 20 months old. And it's a huge move for any couple, but a rewarding one too. I'm thrilled to say Sunita joins me now. Sunita, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for having me. I'm with my other baby. This is Scarlett O'Hara. She's fallen asleep, so she's. We're in between shows, so that's why I look like this. This is my Chicago week because I'm on the UK tour at the moment. But I'm so happy to be joining the show. And we're in Hull at the moment.
Oh, wow. I mean, that sounds fabulous. I'd love to see that show. I can remember you from the days So Much Show. I used to sing along. I wanted to be you, Sunita. I did when I was younger. Now, it was a good time. It was a very, very good time. Now, let's talk about you, because you adopted two lovely children. Can you talk to me a little bit about your story, what led you to adoption, and you know, how it's been for you, the process itself?
Yes, well, I mean, very, very sort of tragically and sadly, I had miscarriages, and, you know, I worked with a surrogate, and I did IVF and tried lots of different routes to motherhood, parenthood, that didn't work out for me. And then my husband and I, at the time, we opted to adopt. And we were very, you know, after the whole process, you know, we did the whole home sort of a journey where they vet you and get to know you. There's a whole home study. We were matched to an amazing little girl that they said they thought was perfect for us. And just as we were about to go through with that, they found that there was a sibling in the system. So a biological sibling, you know, younger, you know, another child. So we decided to take both of them because they like sibling groups to be adopted together. So we were blessed with two beautiful children, Zach and Magdalena. They were babies at the time. Well, nearly sort of walking, talking toddlers, but not quite. And, the nightmare ended because suddenly this whole treacherous journey to parenthood was solved. And, the process was quite invasive, but necessary because you can't just hand children over to people that you don't know who they are. But they do try to make the process not take much longer than a natural pregnancy, so 9 months or maximum a year.
Now, I want to ask you, because I know your husband is of a different colour to you, was that a barrier for going through the adoption process?
No, not at all. In fact, they were really looking for mixed couples because mixed race children are the most children in care, believe it or not. So ideally, they like to match children to a family that they would look like they naturally fitted into. However, the laws were just changing as well at that time, because in the old days they didn't like to put a black child, say, with a white family, or a single parent or same-sex parent. Whereas in our group there were two same-sex couples, a female and a male same-sex. There was a single mum as well, and then there was us, a mixed couple. So it was a very diverse group, and it was just the beginning of this new way of thinking that actually, love is love. And, sometimes we're not, the way we look as a family is not conventional, but it's better for children to have people who love them rather than people who look right or fit a certain sort of standard of way people expect you to look.
And the whole procedure and process, how long did it take?
It took just a little over a year, and they don't like it to take any longer than that. Like they try to say that it will take as long as a natural pregnancy. Yeah.
And how are the little children now? How old are they? They must be getting on.
My little children are both towering over me. My daughter's 5'8", my son is 5'10". They're 15 years old.
Oh my word!
And yeah, I'm now the little one in the family, apart from Scarlett. And they're doing great. They are, big, well-adjusted, beautiful kids. Same challenges. I mean, we fight over the mobile phone, homework, all that jazz, pun intended. But but they're lovely. Yeah, and it's the best decision that I ever made. And people sort of say, well, you can't really love them as much as you would love your own biological children. And it's absolutely not true. First of all, because I don't have my own biological children to compare them to. But, when you fall in love with your partner, that's not a biological relationship. So I always say that love is thicker than blood. And I couldn't love them anymore. And I wouldn't trade them for biological children either.
No, of course not. Of course not. No, they're beautiful. I love my children. I want to ask you, with your partner, because you mentioned that you're no longer with that partner. Was that quite difficult because you've got the two children who are adopted with your partner at that time?
I mean, it was difficult because I never wanted to be a single parent. And, this is not at all judging single parent. It was because my mother raised me as a single parent. And it was very hard. She worked very hard to give me everything and educate me and all those things. And it's really not what I wanted for myself. So that part was hard. Luckily, we broke up when the children were still so young that it didn't affect them as much as it would have done if he'd been in their lives for a long time and then they lost him. So, but it's not ideal. I mean, you want the support, you want someone there to share the happy things with, when they speak for the first time or they take the first step, you want somebody else who cares as much as you do. But, my mother did it and I've done it. I've kept them alive and they're healthy and they're well and, I love them to pieces. So we're okay, but it just wasn't ideal. It's not the way I would have planned it.
Do they still have a good relationship with their adopted father?
Yes, they do. He actually moved to Hong Kong 6 months after we adopted them. So they're used, but he's very good. He's on the telephone with them regularly and they've never known any differently and they get to visit him there and he visits them here. And, and I've been careful not to be damning of his decisions to them because, he's their father and, and I want them to have that good relationship. So, yeah, you know, they're fine. They're really well adjusted and doing well.
Now, I wanted to ask you this because we're talking about veganism, and I'm sure I read somewhere that you are super healthy in the way you eat. Are you a vegan yourself?
I'm not, but I'm not a vegan 100% of the time. I would definitely never call myself a vegan, but I would say 75% of my diet, the way I eat, is vegan because I eat a lot of fresh fruit and vegetables. I was raised vegetarian, so I don't eat meat. However, I do eat fish probably once or twice a week. I am primarily this is the weird thing, primarily dairy free. However, if I go out and I'm having red wine, I will enjoy cheese. So I'm kind of primarily vegan, but I allow myself, you know, the treats when I want them.
See, I was trying to work out what your secret is, you see, just so I can follow in your footsteps, because you're looking fantastic. I couldn't believe it when I read when you were born.
Makeup on now, however, this is my Chicago sort of face, so this is not it.
Yeah, no, it's slightly scary with the eyes, but otherwise you look great. You look fabulous. So the kids are doing well, which is wonderful. What would you say to anybody who is thinking about adoption? What was the one thing that you sort of discovered that you hadn't really anticipated would be the case?
Well, first I would really say to look into it. I would also say to look into adopting here in the UK, because there's so many children in the UK needing homes and families. Rather than going abroad and all the uncertainty, I would say to try to get as much information and background about the children that you're adopting, you know, so that you know if they have any inherited problems or hereditary situations that you're going to have to deal with. But you know, that endless, sometimes painless quest to motherhood or parenthood, you don't have to go through that. There's children just waiting and needing you. So, you know, don't be afraid. Don't be afraid. And once you do it and you have your baby in your arms, you will think, why didn't we just do this sooner? And I fully support the whole thing. I wouldn't change a thing.
Now tell us just about where you are for people to come to see your show.
Oh, thank you. So currently I'm in Hull, but it's our last night in Hull, and it's been fantastic. Next week we're going to be in Southampton for a week, and then we're in Bromley, so that's a bit closer to London if people want to see us. And it's Chicago the musical. I'm playing Mama Morton, having the time of my life. Live music, you know, live audiences, and just connecting to people again after your crazy sort of 18 months. It's really nice to be back on stage and back out there again.
Well, it's just so amazing that you've even joined us here on GBNews. Thank you so much. Before you leave, though, tell us a bit about the music, because you've got a song out. Talk to me.
Oh, yes. I also have a Christmas single, which again alludes to, you know, the difficult times we've just had. It's called I Won't Be Lonely This Christmas, and it's about all of us being clever enough to make our plans to make sure that this year, unlike last year, our loved ones, our family, our parents are all safely in touch, and we have a Christmas plan. No matter what happens with the pandemic and everything, and we're not going to be lonely this Christmas. It's upbeat, it's got a Motown kind of feel, and it's really catchy, so I hope you like it.
Well, we're going to love it. Sunita, thank you so much for joining us. Before you go, can you introduce your song? We're going to have a listen.
Yes, for everyone, for Christmas 2021, this is Sunita and I Won't Be Lonely This Christmas.
Holly on the front door, hang our Christmas cards along the walls, put tinsel on the windows, drape our paper chains across the halls. Gonna light a Christmas tree for all the world to see, because the man I love is on his way back home to me. He's coming home to me. I won't be lonely this Christmas. My baby's coming back to me. I won't be lonely this Christmas. Gonna give me last year he went away just before Christmas Day, but now he's coming home and I'll be waiting beneath the mistletoe.
Wow, the amazing Sunita. I think that might might be the first time that's been played on TV. Excellent. The brilliant Sneeta, her Christmas song is out, and she's obviously touring, doing Chicago. Now, after the break, we'll come back to the great British debate this hour. Would you consider a vegan lifestyle? Claridge's star chef has left his role after he disagreed with bosses over a vegan menu. Daniel Hum wanted to create a fully plant-based kitchen at the hotel's fine dining restaurant. Whilst respecting his direction, the hotel says it's not the path they want to follow. We'll hear my panel's thoughts and yours, but first let's get your latest news headlines.
Hello, I'm Karen Roberts. Here are the latest headlines. COP26 President Alok Sharma says he expects the global climate summit to end today with an agreement. It's after the UN released its third climate draft agreement this morning, as negotiations extended into extra time. It maintains a reference to phasing out inefficient fossil fuel subsidies, but sticking points include how much cash rich countries should send to poorer ones to help them adapt. Richard Ratcliffe, the husband of a British-Iranian woman detained in Iran, is ending his hunger strike after 21 days. Mr. Ratcliffe has been camping outside the Foreign Office in central London, striking over his wife's detention in Iran since 2016. Scottish Tory leader Douglas Ross has apologised after failing to declare thousands of pounds in outside earnings. Mr. Ross was forced to refer himself to the Standards Commissioner after he received more than £28,000 from 2 additional jobs. As well as being an MP, the politician is also an MSP and works as a football referee. Celebrities have shared their support for Britney Spears as her conservatorship was terminated after nearly 14 years. Heiress Paris Hilton told her near 17 million Twitter followers that the ruling was long overdue. Singer Cher also voiced her support. Britney had been fighting to end the complex legal agreement she was placed under in 2008, which restricted her personal and professional life. And London has kicked off its Christmas festivities with the world's largest light switch on. More than 1 million LED lights have been turned on simultaneously across 20 West End streets. The displays can be seen across the capital's most well-known places, including Mayfair, Piccadilly Circus and Leicester Square. You're up to date. More headlines at 6 o'clock.
You're watching GB News live across the UK and the world on our digital stream.
GB News is Britain's news channel.
We are the UK's home of discussion and debate from all perspectives.
We are here for you. Don't forget to join our YouTube community by clicking on that subscribe button.
And if you want the GB News app, you can click and catch up on programmes anytime.
We love to hear from you, so email us.
gbviews@gbnews.uk.
Thanks for being part of the GB News family.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of 2 wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilized conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
I'm Colin Brazier. I've reported from more than 70 countries around the world, covered wars from Afghanistan to Iraq, from Lebanon to the Balkans. I'm trying to bring that experience, that feel for events, to the studio. And something else, I'm ready to give an opinion. Today's stories with a spark. Brazier from 8 p.m. weekdays on GB News.
So good afternoon. Let's get back to our Great British debate for this hour. We're talking vegans. Claridge's star chef has left his role after he disagreed with bosses over a vegan menu. Daniel Hum wanted to create a fully plant-based kitchen at the hotel's fine dining restaurant. Whilst respecting his direction, the hotel says it's not the path they wish to follow. So I'm asking, would you consider a vegan lifestyle? I'm joined by restaurateur and cookery school owner Giancarlo Caldesi. So, Giancarlo, I'm going to ask you, what do you think about this then, a fully plant-based menu? Is that a step too far?
No, it's not actually. I know Daniel Ham. I met him actually in Capri Island. He told me he was opening the restaurant, and he told me a few things, and I really didn't agree with him as a principle. Number one, in my view, veganism or being vegan is not entirely correct. Number one, we need to look at nutrition. We are omnivore, so it's important to have a food that it consists of a plant-based, I agree, also fish, meat, and his point of doing the menu as a plant-based, it doesn't go with the hotel. It really doesn't. It wouldn't be correct. It just, and we're not ready to have a total vegan attitude to one restaurant. I really don't believe that. And also, going totally vegan, we're not helping the planet either, because there isn't anything that we do as a large scale that helps the planet. I think the planet is a bit more helpful if we use all the things that we have already, but in maybe less scale than we do. And having a, let's say, a lifestyle which includes all the things that we have ready to eat. And that's how I feel, really. But in my restaurant, I would add that I have a couple of vegan dishes and vegetarian, because I really believe that there's a space for that.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, yeah, your restaurant sounds great. A man that can cook as well. That's exactly what I've been looking for all my life, but I still haven't found one that can cook really well. What's your favourite dish to cook?
I'll tell you what I really like. I like haddock is one amazing fish. I do it with a special sauce, which is actually is vegetarian, sort of not vegetarian. You can have that because there isn't any other things than fish, tomato, olives, capers. Is an Italian sort of way, and olive oil obviously is an Italian way of cooking. But to come back to your vegan connection, and I genuinely, when I met the chef, I said to him, "Are you sure you're going to open, and how long will you last?" If he remembers, in Capri when I met him, and I said, "Daniel, how long will you last?" Oh, well, was all very full of himself, and you can't do that. You cannot really do that. I'm sorry. I've been in business for a long time. I've been in London a long time. I consider myself a Londoner, and really London is an amazing place where you can do things, where you can do many things, but you cannot be so stubborn. And really, it's important that in a restaurant where it has to have a balance of plant-based and also fish and some meat as well.
Well, that's what it's all about. It's all about balance. Tim, it's been a pleasure talking to you. Thank you very much for joining us with regard to all that. Giancarlo, sorry, I called you Tim. I don't know why I've done that. Giancarlo, thank you so much for joining me and telling all about his restaurant and cookery school. I always wanted. I'm not a great chef. I'm all right. Well, I can cook, and I do love cooking. But it's always nice if somebody else cooks for you, don't you think? It's lovely, isn't it?
I like Giancarlo's approach, though. Like, you should have a choice of vegan options, vegetarian options, absolutely. Whereas Daniel Hume seems to me to be an ideologue. Everyone should eat what I think they should eat. That's not how the world works.
Literally ramming it down our throats.
Offer people a choice. Ramming it. I like that. That's very good.
Why is that good? Well, I didn't get that.
I think it's a joke.
About
a joke, because ramming it down our throats, but literally ramming it down our throats.
Yes, in the food.
Yeah,
vegan, yeah. Would you go vegan?
Vegan? I mean, no, I love vegan food. I love putting it on my plate next to my real food and then scraping it into the bin once I've eaten my real food. It's not. You saw that guy from the Vegan Society. He looked like he couldn't get dressed without help. You know what I mean? They always look like that. Like I've got a beautiful girlfriend. I like being able to pick her up and throw her on the bed. I don't want to be like getting out of breath, walking up the stairs.
Well,
like they always look so malnourished and so ill.
I do agree with you that many people who go through the vegan diet do seem to look very malnourished and don't look that great. And there was one restaurant, and I won't give too much detail, but sometimes I go there, and the lady has turned the menu all vegan and everything else like that, and it's just cakes and sweets mostly.
Yeah.
And some vegetables put on the side to make it look nice. And I'm thinking, well, what have you been using in there instead? And it turns out there's a lot of vegetable oil.
Yeah,
vegetable
sugar.
oil is highly inflammable in terms of it causing inflammation in your body because it's omega-6, and you want really more omega-3, which comes from fish mostly and things like meats and stuff like that. And so I'm concerned that this vegan stuff is actually very hyper-processed.
Yeah, and also the issue with the farming, and he says it uses less land. I mean, it's true to an extent, but then if you look at upland hill farming, so that land can't really be used for growing crops. It can only be used for sheep. So, you're wasting the land if you don't eat the sheep. That's the way I see it.
No one loves animals more than British farmers. Yeah. They're custodians of the countryside, of our wildlife, and all of that is so important. It accounts for, I think, 2% of our GDP. Like, just to get rid of all those jobs and get rid of all those people that protect our wildlife and our countryside is bonkers. That's what I mean. They're zealots, they're ideologues, and they've tried to rebrand themselves as plant-based, which sounds even worse to me. I've got no problem with vegetarianism. That seems quite reasonable to me, but vegans are extremists.
I do think that there is an extreme, and you have to be careful because there's certain types of diet that actually put you in a category of the extreme. And whilst there is a level of veganism that I respect, I mean, I have Brazil nut milk, I make my own milk, 9 Brazil nuts, water, ice, put it in the blender, and that's what I put on my...
You can have it as much as you want, but it's not milk.
No, it's Brazil nut milk, so it's the milk from the Brazil nut, isn't it?
Right.
And I have it with my shredded wheat. Oh, I've got an addiction to those at the moment with a bit of Manuka honey, although that ruins it, the Manuka, because obviously you're taking it from
that's not vegan, it's produced
there
by
is
a bee.
the acacia honey you can use, or there's this other stuff which is like this sugar that is not really sugar, but stevia, that sort of thing. So I can do that, but it doesn't taste right to me.
I just think humans spent a long time getting to the top of the food chain. We completely dominated all other animals, so we should be allowed to eat them, including giraffes and lions and stuff.
But the giraffes look so nice. I don't think you'd get much...
Oh, they look like they'd be delicious. Imagine the ribs on a giraffe.
Yeah, but you wouldn't get much food out of the neck. I mean, that looks
no, you get I think you could lay it along this table and everybody...
Oh, for goodness sake.
We might be getting a bit off topic.
No, that's going too far.
What really gets me, though, is the way that Tim ended his segment with, we need to help people make the choices about what they eat. I've already made the choice about what I eat, thank you very much. I choose not to be a vegan. These people want you to make the right choice. It's like the pro-vaxxers. You have to make the choice that we want you to make.
The nanny state.
Yeah, absolutely. It's all about the nanny state.
Well,
for every person that says, I'm not going to eat a steak, I'm going to eat 2 steaks.
Well, that'll be nice. Calvin will be back here in the studio and he'll put on quite a bit of weight. We're like, all right, Calvin, you're still chewing on a bit of steak. No, I'm very much into my nutrition, very much into my food. I believe in all the different sort of ways of eating. There are plenty of them. There's some ridiculous ones as well. But to me, veganism is a slight extreme because anything of too much of one thing or one type of thing is never a good thing. When has it ever been? And even for the good stuff, if you have too much of that, it turns out to be bad. And I think that they haven't thought about the process because the animals grazing on the land there must be something in their saliva that then puts some more things. No, but there's
a whole ecosystem.
There's a whole ecosystem that comes from the whole process of the animal, and if you take that out, it'll have a much bigger ramifications and things you haven't even considered.
Yeah, absolutely, and it's about the pleasure from food as well. I mean, you just can't tell me. I mean, I love eating salads and aubergine and whatever, but you can't tell me that it's as delicious as like lamb chops, just freshly grilled. It's amazing. Like the pleasure, the sensual pleasure you get from food like that is amazing. I don't think Tim's getting it. I don't think these vegan people are getting that.
Tim, I think Tim, like I said, when he said that, I said, no, if you're really hungry, Tim, you would. Because you would do, wouldn't you? You can say, you can have all this principle stuff, but then if you were somewhere starving, you'd eat whatever you could eat. I mean, I think this is like a third world, sort of a first world problem.
It's very privileged thing, isn't it?
Oh, I'm not going to eat that. No, I'm not going to eat that. Listen, we'll drop you off somewhere in Africa where there's not much choice. And you'll eat whatever you can get your hands on.
You know what? It's incredibly...
And you'll kill it yourself as well, trust me, if you have to.
It's incredibly woke as well, isn't it? And like everything woke, it outwokes itself. So a vegan might be wearing leather shoes, or like you said, they might have honey and not realise that it's not vegan. There's always a trap there. You can never be fully vegan. Like with any extreme woke ideology, you can never meet it entirely.
Yeah, and there's nothing wrong with being vegan. That's not what we're saying. But the point is...
I am. I'm saying it's extremism.
Well,
I don't like it.
But you're allowed to choose whatever diet you want, as you said. It's a free world, you do what you like.
But when do meat eaters ever go to vegans and try and convince them to eat meat? This is the thing. I feel the same way about it as I do about religion. I'm happy for you to practice whatever religion you want. Just don't try and convince me to practice it as well.
Well, sometimes veganism has been compared to a religion on some things.
Yeah.
I know some cases people have won the right to do their vegan nonsense. No, nothing wrong with vegan. I'm joking. Right, today we're asking, would you consider a vegan lifestyle? You've heard what my guests and panel have to think, but now it's your turn for your say, and lots of you have been saying quite a bit. Craig says, no, life is for living and enjoying food is part of that. I agree. Nothing wrong with people choosing veganism, but it shouldn't be forced on others. Steve says, until my canine incisor teeth spontaneously fall out and as a divine message, I would continue to be a meat eater. Tony says, what is it that most meat restaurants offer a vegan option or two, but vegan restaurants don't offer non-vegan?
That's a
really
great
good point. It's right, isn't it? Well, how come they don't?
Fascists.
I do eat, Jan says, I do eat vegan food. I also eat meat, fish, eggs and dairy. I have a balanced diet. This is better for me, and I choose to eat meat raised sustainably and locally caught fish. I don't think my lentils are locally caught, though, by the way. She's honest, and she's right, because some of those things, the carbon footprint of some of those things that are coming to your table have made all their way from somewhere like Brazil or from the rainforest. Palm oil's no good, and that's in lots of vegan food.
Avocado from South America.
British farmers produce 60% of the food that we consume in our own country. That's fantastic. Buy British.
Yeah, of course, I love that. Right, so a spokesman for Claridge's said, we completely respect and understand the culinary direction of a fully plant-based menu that Daniel has decided to embrace and champion and now wants to introduce in London. However, this is not the path we wish to follow here at Claridge's at the moment, and therefore, regretfully, we have mutually agreed to go our separate ways.
I love that. It's like, you get on with it if you want to do it, but we're not interested. Thank you very much.
You won't make any money out of it because people... There's nothing wrong with that, and that's lovely, but ultimately, if you're, you've got a restaurant and you want many people coming in, offer lots of variety and you'll get lots of people. Daniel Hum...
Diversity.
Absolutely, diversity and inclusion. Daniel Hum said on Friday night it was with sadness that he would leave. He said, the future for me is plant-based. This is our mission and what we stand by as a company. And at this time, this is not the direction that Claridge's feels is right for them. Fair enough, isn't it? That's fair enough. Listen, now it's time for something a little bit different. It's Nana's Quickfire Quiz. 5 questions with my panellists going head to head. They've each got a buzzer with a unique sound, so when I ask them the questions, they can buzz in with their answers. So let's just check your buzzers. Hands on buzzer. Let me hear what yours... That's Leo's buzzer. Very nice. Right, Excellent. Right, all right. Let's do this. Right, so this is question number 1. Which of these shops in South London came first? Was it A, Fish World, B, Fish Universe? Oh, I don't know.
You could take it, Leo.
Oh, I don't know. Go on then, Leo. What do you think?
I think it's Fish World.
Unfortunately, I need a buzzer. I need one to say it's wrong. It's wrong. No.
Oh, my God.
I've never heard of either of these.
I thought Fish Universe was a competition for attractive fish.
Oh, very good. But no, there it is, Fish Universe and Fish World. They're both there, but one of them came first, and that was, in fact, Fish Universe.
Right. Well, I know my place.
Now, these two fishmongers in Tooting seem pretty similar. Let's have another look at them. Sorry, I meant to look at that and I didn't look at it, but there they are. Now, there might be, they seem to be sort of copying each other. Has anyone ever tried to copy you, Leo? No, unlikely. Calvin. No, go on.
I don't know, not off the top of my head, no.
Is it not? What about you?
Yeah, I mean, I've had somebody did some material that's slightly similar to mine.
Oh yeah, comedians do that, don't they?
Yeah, like they changed it enough that it wasn't, it wasn't a direct copy.
Name and shame, Leo. Name and shame.
No, I'm not going to name and shame. I've already got enough enemies in comedy.
Yeah, no, I've got many of those as well. It's not from comedy either. Interesting stuff. Right, let's have a look. Question number 2. What are companies willing to spend £60,000 on an attempt to get staff back into the office? Is it A, supplies of cookies, B, gardens and green features, or C, free bicycles?
Free bicycles for employees.
Calvin said it's free bicycles, and the answer is... No, it's not. Leo, your turn. Go on then.
Is it gardens and green features?
Oh, no, it can't be.
It's correct. It's gardens and green features in the office. Very good.
Oh, boring.
It's 1-0. 1-0. Crikey, this is the first time that we've actually tallied the score. Yes, so companies are willing to spend big on installing green features in their offices, according to Alexander Bond, founder of Biophilic Designs.
Biophilic?
Yeah, I know. It's a bit weird, isn't it, saying it like that? Big city firms have been putting in things like living walls, gardens and artificial streams in their workplaces. So if you owned a business, how would you tempt employers back to the office?
Well, I wouldn't do that because the vegans would eat all the
Well, they might
plants.
do, yes. That's not great.
I'd have some animals.
I think catered, have nice lunches. You know, some offices have sandwich ladies come by, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Make it so that people don't have to make decisions about going out for lunch.
Yeah. I'd have animals in the office, like some Brazilian capybara just roaming around.
What are they,
to cheer
snakes?
everyone up.
I like that.
What are they, snakes?
Capybara, large rodents. The world's largest rodent, in fact.
Cats and dogs would be sufficient.
People might be allergic. I think we should get capybara in.
What if you're allergic to capybara?
Well, you're not going to be because you won't have been exposed to them because they're Brazilian.
Is that how it works?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
That's what it's thinking. Well, perhaps you don't want to be exposed to them and find out you're allergic to them. There could be a bit of a lawsuit coming your way. Now, this next one is a true or false. David Attenborough was saved from crowds of revellers at COP26 by the owners of a Greek restaurant. True or false?
True.
He says it's true. Unfortunately, no, it was false. With no points.
Is it false?
Yes, it's false. Very good. Well done. Yes, it was Greta Thunberg who was saved by the Greek restaurant, actually. She went to the Elia in Glasgow Square for a vegetarian meal after making a speech. But when word got out about where she was, a large crowd gathered outside. The owners of the restaurant responded by ushering her out of the back door. Fair enough, that's what I would do, where an electric car was waiting. Yeah. So have you ever been swamped by adoring fans? Leo, again, no. Calvin? No, I don't know. Have you ever been?
Not swamped, but it is lovely whenever someone stops you in the street and says hello and, you know, thank you for your contributions, all that kind of. I love that.
Yeah,
meeting the
it's nice,
viewers, meeting the listeners is always great.
Yeah. Have you had that a lot?
Well, following off, somebody in the newsroom was at my show at Comedy Carnival last night. So yeah, they said they watched it and they said they liked it. So that was good.
I went to your show one time.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Top Secret Comedy, best club in London.
Yeah, once. Right, you don't need buzzers for this one. From 2010 to 2019, how much money did the NHS spend on manually removing objects from a place where they were not supposed to be? And whoever gets the closest gets the point. Right, I'm going to start with... I'll go with Calvin this time because Leo's gone first a few times already.
You think he's got first-hand experience?
No, oh, very good.
£30,000.
£30,000, OK.
I am going to go higher. I'm going to say £80,000.
£80,000. Gosh, you guys are way off. All right, shall I tell you?
Yeah.
Well, Leo, you are closest, but you're still way off. They spent about £3 million.
What? £3 million?
That's over 9
What, is it Fabergé eggs they're pulling out?
No, those would probably be easier to get out.
Oh, yeah, because they've got the
But they've
bits
got the
you
right
get the grip
shape,
on.
haven't they?
People
It's their egg
abuse
shape.
the NHS, isn't it?
Yeah.
This is.
But where would they be putting these things? Gosh, well,
Don't want to know.
You think we should have medical apartheid for people who inserted Fabergé eggs into
They're the
orifices?
people you lock up.
It might be,
You want lockdown for them?
Well, listen here, NHS records show bedroom experiments gone wrong have so far cost the health service £340,000 per year. I had 3 million there. Oh, per year? No, it does end up being 3 million. Yes. So over the past decade, that is at least 3 million. So is this a good thing to be spending taxpayers' money on? You talked about it briefly.
Well, yes, it is. People can't live their lives with,
well, you have to pay for
root vegetables inside them.
Well, you have to pay for it yourself, though. You inserted it. You
So
get
the
it
thing
out.
about the NHS is it should be free at the point of access for anyone who needs it.
The point of access being...
No, I wasn't even going to go there. But the problem is the free electives, or the cosmetic stuff. So boob enlargements, or what's the opposite of an enlargement? Reductions. Lip fillers. All these nonsense cosmetic things should not be on the NHS. But when people need it, if people have got a stupid emergency with something stuffed where it shouldn't be, that's fine.
You've got to do it. Right, residents, next question. Residents in Bury are facing £42 daily fines for which of these offences? A, putting satellite dishes on the side of their houses. B, not emptying skips in their front garden. Or C, painting their front door a different colour. Leo.
It's C, painting their front door a different colour.
That is correct, but I think you've been cheating. You looked on my notes.
I didn't look at your notes.
What's
It's
the
not even at the top.
What's the score?
I'm aware of this story.
Are you? Are you? Oh, really? Okay, well, it's 4-0
Insider
win
knowledge.
so far. You've scored nothing, Galvin, unfortunately.
I know.
So, yes, the truth of this story is residents in an estate in northern England have actually been told that they cannot change the colour of their front doors.
Yeah, that's fair enough.
This happens a lot. You've got housing associations, and if you put a statuette of a cat in the window, you get a letter from the housing association telling you to put the statue away.
Do you think it's fair enough?
Yeah, absolutely. Like, it's keeping in tradition with the neighbourhood, making sure everything looks nice. I've got no problem with it whatsoever.
As an individualist, I think people should be allowed to paint their own property whatever colour they want. And if you don't like it, just don't look at the front door.
I mean, what if they paint something coarse and obtuse on the door?
Well, it depends. What do you think is coarse and obtuse?
Exactly. That's why uniformity.
There's a judgment. There's a judgment
in the neighbourhood
to be
is
made.
important. What if they put like 2 fingers sticking up or something?
Free speech?
No, it's vulgar.
Yeah, fair enough. Well, I can tell you the scores on the doors. Leo scores 4 out of 5. Well done, Calvin. Nil point. You should go to the top of the leaderboard.
That's a rubbish quiz anyway.
For my quick fire quiz. How dare you? Right, so on today's show, we've been asking, are COVID vaccines personal choice or civic duty? According to our Twitter poll, 78% of you say it's a personal choice. Wow. Interesting. I thought it'd be slightly higher than that.
Our viewers are always right, aren't they?
Well, they are.
They always get it right. And you're often wrong, Nana.
No. Most of the polls I'm always right, and I write them as well, so that I will be right as well. And that's the way it goes. I've got to say a big thank you to my panel. Calvin Robinson. Calvin, thank you so much for joining me.
Always a pleasure.
And also the fabulous Leo Curse for joining me today. It's been a pleasure as ever. Listen, I'm back tomorrow at 4. Thank you so much for your company. I look forward to seeing you tomorrow at 4. But first, it's the weather.
Looking ahead to this evening's weather, and the UK is looking mostly dry, though cloudier in the east as well as far west. Let's take a look at the details. A fair amount of cloud around across the southwest of England this evening, but equally a few clear spells too. A mild feel if you're heading out, with temperatures between 11 and 13 Celsius. For London and the southeast, skies will generally be cloudy this evening, and there may be a few passing light showers. Some clear spells across South Wales, and their skies are clear there. Those temperatures will be dropping off quite quickly this evening into single figures. For the Midlands, a mixture of clear spells and some areas of cloud, but it is a dry picture with light winds and temperatures around 10 or 11 Celsius for most places. More cloud as we head towards Yorkshire and northeast England, and this may be capable of producing a few light showers. However, most places will be dry and relatively mild for a November evening. Quite a bit of cloud towards the east coast of Scotland, but further west there will be clear skies to take us into the evening, allowing it to quickly become chilly. Maybe a few clear breaks towards the east of Northern Ireland, but on the whole it's a cloudy and mild picture with some spots of rain encroaching from the west. And tomorrow, clear skies will gradually be eroded from the west and east by cloud, but where it stays clear, some fog is likely. And that is how the weather is shaping up overnight and into tomorrow morning.
Join me, Mark White, here on GB News. For more than 2 decades, I've been at the sharp end of reporting crime and security at home and abroad. From the scourge of terrorism to the fight against violent crime and the deepening small boats crisis in the Channel, they're issues you rightly care about, and so do I. As GB News Home and Security Editor, my focus will be on the stories that matter to you.
You're watching GB News live across the UK and the world on our digital stream.
GB News is Britain's news channel.
We are the UK's home of discussion and debate from all perspectives.
We are here for you. Don't forget to join our YouTube community by clicking on that subscribe button.
And if you want the GB News app, you can click and catch up on programmes anytime.
We love to hear from you, so email us.
gbviews@gbnews.uk.
Thanks for being part of the GB News family.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of 2 wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
I'm Colin Brazier. I've reported from more than 70 countries around the world, covered wars from Afghanistan to Iraq, from Lebanon to the Balkans. I'm trying to bring that experience, that feel for events, to the studio. And something else. I'm ready to give an opinion. Today's stories with a spark. Brazier from 8 p.m. weekdays on GB News.
Hello, I'm Karen Roberts. These are your latest headlines at 6 o'clock. World leaders have all gathered on stage at the COP26 summit in Glasgow. The conference has been extended to allow the 200 countries to sign off on the third revised climate draft agreement. Delegates from India say consensus remains elusive, and delegates from Iran say they are not happy with the language in the text around fossil fuels. But COP26 President Alok Sharma says he understands the concerns of various parties, but warned against upsetting the current delicate balance.
As I said at the start of this conference, we will succeed or fail as one. Friends, the world is watching us. They're willing us to reach an agreement here for the sake of our planet and for present and future generations.
Speaking at the summit, US Special Presidential Envoy for Climate, John Kerry, says we are poised to make a remarkable step here, and he urged the 200 countries in attendance to get the draft agreement over the line for future generations.
We are going to ratify this, accept this text, initiate a critical set of choices for all citizens around the world for this decade, so that we can in fact guarantee to our children, our grandchildren, to the next generations that we did our job.
Richard Ratcliffe, the husband of a British Iranian woman detained in Iran, has ended his hunger strike after 21 days. Mr. Ratcliffe has been camping outside the Foreign Office in central London, striking over Nazanin Zaghari Ratcliffe's detention in Iran since 2016. He's trying to put pressure on the British government to help free his wife. He's criticised Prime Minister Boris Johnson, saying he shouldn't walk away from promises made.
He hasn't dealt adequately with Nazanin's case for years. He hasn't honoured his promises, and we live with those consequences. You know, my job is to keep going for Gabriella. We probably hoped we'd get a breakthrough doing this. We haven't yet. I didn't want to go out in an ambulance. I wanted to walk out with my head held high.
Scottish Tory leader Douglas Ross has been accused of being knee-deep in sleaze after failing to declare thousands of pounds in outside earnings. Mr. Ross was forced to refer himself to the Standards Commissioner after he received more than £28,000 from 2 additional jobs. As well as being an MP, the politician is also an MSP and works as a football referee. The SNP said he was failing the Scottish people and needs to focus on one job. Celebrities have shared their support for Britney Spears as her conservatorship was terminated after nearly 14 years. Paris Hilton told her near 17 million Twitter followers that the ruling was long overdue. Singer Cher also voiced her support. The pop superstar had been fighting to end the complex legal agreement she was placed under in 2008 that restricted her personal and professional life. That's your latest headlines. I'll be back at 7 o'clock.
It's that time again. The pub is open. The GB News Arms is open. It's Talking Pints. I'm here with John McTinn. And John, cheers, welcome.
Yeah, cheers,
to the
thanks for having me on.
Nice to see you. Now, you've sort of been man and boy of the Labour Party.
I have been.
You've done quite a lot of jobs within the Labour Party, and not just here, around the world as well, for the Labour movement. You know, when you think about it, when you were there with Tony Blair, one of the key figures, political figures in Downing Street, and he was really at the height, wasn't he, of his power, and the Tory party just couldn't respond.
Didn't find a way to...
Just couldn't get back in him at all, and in fact, for a period of years, they sort of almost stopped criticising.
They were mesmerised. The way the Labour Party actually was by Margaret Thatcher. I remember Tony saying to me, he realised in the 80s that the Tory party were captivated by Margaret Thatcher and that the Labour Party were mesmerised by her, but that the future was going to be after her and that he was never going to be facing her as a politician. So he went to that open space. I think until the Tories realised there was a space beyond Tony, they couldn't get around him, couldn't get beyond him.
No, and I mean, look, you know, I know Iraq and immigration policies, and I could make many arguments about what he did wrong, but the one thing that he had was, he really did have amazing persuasive abilities.
He had a view of the world.
You know, I watched him in 2005 walk into the European Parliament, you know, which was pretty anti him at that time. I was there. He spoke without notes. He completely turned the chamber around there. And it was quite, I mean, he was remarkable. One of the things that he'd done well, and yeah, the Tories were out of time and replacing Thatcher was always going to be difficult. Rather like replacing Blair's quite difficult.
Absolutely.
I mean, it's a very similar situation. But one of the things he did well is Tory sleaze, it stuck. Yeah. You know, he attacked, I mean, the major Back to Basics campaign.
That was an error in retrospect.
You've always got a lot. Well, maybe there's an error going on right now.
It feels a bit like that.
And clearly what Johnson did last week, or whether it was Johnson or who it was, we'll probably never know.
It's never the emperor.
Well, of course.
Always. Miscommunication.
Well, someone's got to take, I mean, you know, somebody else hangs. I mean, that's the way it works. Starmer today was actually quite good, I thought. But has he got what Blair had? Are we going to see a Labour Party resurge, in your view?
So, I think if Tony was around today as leader, he wouldn't be like Tony was in 1997. You have to fashion the answer for the times you're in. So, I think one of the things which Keir's got, which is difficult with this party, is not the left got beaten. What's difficult with the party is the people who hanker for European Union citizenship. They don't feel they've been beaten. And Keir really has to ram home, Brexit's done. We're not going back.
It's interesting you raise this because I remember as leader of UKIP, and I was going around the country and picking up support